Learning decentered dating is a lot like learning how to navigate food when you're in recovery for an eating disorder. I was a binge eater with periods then of limiting food and excessive exercise, which, for whoever needs to hear it, is actually no purge bulimia. And so I went to Overeaters Anonymous, and with other addictions, you can do abstinence. You have to eat. And so you're tasked with this very nuanced and difficult process of having to unravel and unwind all of the meaning that you've placed on these things and observe all of your craving and aversion for these things while still engaging with the thing itself. You have to learn these subtle skills of being able to tune into your body and be like, okay, when am I hungry for actual food versus when am I trying to have an escape or be rescued or feel something different or control my experience by eating food? When am I actually full? And what food actually feels good to put in my body or not? So all of this I found incredibly meaning and rewarding, and I apply it to now my efforts of decentering dating with men, because I would do the exact same pattern with men. I'd get hungry and I would go dating and get all crazy, and then it wouldn't feel good and I would overdo it and I'd probably cross a bunch of my boundaries and I'd be like, no more dating, and try and do abstinence, and then we'd get really hungry again. It's like a kind of like emotional sexual bulimia. And so just like I had to center myself in my relationship to food, I have to center myself and feel in and tune into my own experience in these relationships with guys. And girl, I can't even begin to tell you how the questions I ask myself to generate that self-awareness are literally the same. It's basically like, what do I feel? And what was I wanting to get here? And is that really happening? And why did I want that thing to begin with, right? If I was looking for an escape, if I was reaching for like food or for a guy, is it because I'm lonely, sad, bored, unhappy with what I'm doing? And then how can I address that deeper root issue? So I'll give you a story. Last year I was dating this guy and we had amazing chemistry. And if you know me, you know I hold out. And I was really holding out and I was really excited for this guy for the going all the way moment. And then we did, and it wasn't as good. It wasn't as good as I wanted it to be. And I was so disappointing, and I immediately jumped into, well, maybe this is workable, and maybe if we do these different things, and maybe if I twist it this way or that way. I rushed to cope and to strategize, and then I did the same thing that I did with food, right? And was like, okay, well, what am I feeling? And I was just so disappointed and so full in grief and felt really lonely and felt kind of back to the drawing board about stuff. And then I had to pour like warm honey love onto my grief and onto my disappointment. And when I did that, I felt like it like brought me back into my body. It brought me back into reality. And I was like, yeah, this guy, I was able to see him clearly. I saw his humanness. He's just a guy. The same way like a bowl of cereal is just a bowl of cereal. You know, it's not the happiness of everything being okay with your family when you were a kid on Saturday morning. Now we're cooking, right? Now I am centered. Now I am with my experience of grief and disappointment. Now this guy is just a guy. Now I get to ask myself, okay, why was I so willing to throw it all in for him? And why am I feeling so bad? And obviously some of that's natural. And some of it's also like, yeah, it's because I was viewing him as the source of my joy. It's like, okay, we need more joy. And then you can ask yourself a direct question. Hey, is there anything that is feeling beyond the range of what, you know, is unjoyful? Obviously there's like work and just so much stuff about life, you know, you can't feel joy on the time, but is there anything that's really over that boundary for you that we need to change? And then who in you needs more joy and what would bring them joy, right? And then I get to say, how can I be the source of my joy? And come back to my center, come back to myself. And then when I go back to that guy, I'm not in reaction about like, TBH, like, why the heck did you have erectile issues? Because I'm not looking for him to be the thing that meets the need, right? I get to be like, oh my God, you're a human being going through an experience. Tell me more about your experience. So I make this more open, loving space for him to be a person. And this is why I love decentered dating. Because especially for me, the longing to have a man, to have that emotional sexual intimacy in my life is so great that also the opportunity to be with myself is so great. And if I can center here, if you can center in dating, if you can center when all of the biology and all of the longing and all of these things are at their most high, like, girl, that is good training. That is a good dojo. And that means that, like, as more stuff comes down the pike, which I think it is, things are looking pretty crazy and volatile out there, you're that much more practiced and experienced in being with yourself. And you know yourself and you know your patterns, because probably the same patterns that you have with men are the same patterns that you're going to have with everything else. And so doing it this way, it's not for the faint of heart, but it does give you this tremendous opportunity to be with yourself and to be with your patterns and to center yourself more than so many other things I found out there. Anyway, look at this beautiful new plant I just propagated. Lots of love.